Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Sophie and this is Sophie Knits. This is a channel where we talk about knitting, spinning and a little bit of sewing as well, so all things creative and fibery. I know it's a bit early, but my mind is definitely thinking ahead to autumn knits. I think the coziness and comfort of knitting with some wool curled up with the rain outside is really in my heart at the minute. Autumn is definitely my favourite season. So I've picked through some patterns, most of which I think you probably haven't heard of, and I've tried quite hard to limit the number of patterns with a higher number of likes. What I will do is when there's one that's more popular, I'll just note that, but I'm hoping you might find something new in this video, even if you're like me and you're on Ravelry a lot. So I thought we might start with cardigans because I definitely feel like cardigans are proper autumn staple. I think it's just so good for those transitional months where it's getting cooler but you don't necessarily want to be wrapped in like a full wool jumper with mohair or alpaca and having those fibres that are warmer. So I have a few cardigans that have really caught my eye. I think as I go through I'll also let you know like which ones are on my list for sure to make this year. So the first one that I have on my list is called the Popo Jacket and that's by Aegyoknit. This one only has 59 projects on Ravelry despite it being from a fairly popular designer, and it's an oversized cardigan without any buttons, so it's more of that kind of jacket style, and it's very wide. So I haven't knitted it myself so I don't know the construction, but it's incredibly wide and like airy, like a little bit kind of bat wingy, and just designed to be one of those that you just like curl yourself up in. I can see myself on the sofa in an evening wrapping this one around me. So the recommended yarn weight is 2 lace weights and a light fingering held together to get a fingering weight overall. And the recommended yarn is Lang yarns, gel wool held with 2 strands of mohair silk. It uses a US size 10 needle and a US size 6. So I imagine that it's, going to knit up quite quickly given those sizes despite the fact it's a lightweight yarn. It's considered the sister of a jumper, so there's a jumper pattern that's similar, but that one isn't on the list. But so if you like the idea of this one but prefer the idea of it in a jumper, I think it would be one that you might want to check out. The next one on the list is the Diane Cardigan by CookieTheKnitter, and I think this one is so beautiful. Like, I love the pale buttons that she's used on the sample with the white yarn. I think it's just really pretty. But I could equally see this one being beautiful in like a really bright scarlet red or a navy blue. Like, I think it's a really classic design. This one is a drop shoulder cardigan, it's worked top down, and it's also using a number of yarns held together. So it looks as if it's Brushlight by the recommended yarn is Brushlight by Cardiff Classic, held together with 2 strands of soft silk mohair by Knitting for Olive. So that's probably again like overall like a fingering weight. And yeah, this one, I just think it looks so cozy, and I love the way she styled it in these photos over jeans. I think that appeals definitely with the buttons, with it being like almost like a next to skin garment. But with those jeans, I love it when autumn comes around and we get to put our jeans on again. Then another one in white, but this time a bulky weight, because I kind of thought it might be nice to have some quicker projects in here as well. So this one only has 14 projects on Ravelry, I can't believe it. It's a simple jacket by Mochi knits, and this one is just this lovely squishy oversized jacket in this, it looks like rib stitch, yeah, half fisherman's rib. It has some raglan increases and some shoulder shaping, and it's designed to be worn open, though it does have buttons. I actually see that she's styling it in the photos. Let's have a look. Looks as if she's styling them. No, she's not. She's not actually wearing them closed. She's wearing the top one closed in the first one. But I can see what she means about it being more of a jacket. Again, I think this one would be really lovely in classic colours. So I'm thinking a bright red, dark blue, black even. I think it could be really nice in black. I know black yarns aren't always the easiest to work with, but it's bulky, so hopefully this is going to be like a really quick, satisfying knit. This isn't one I have on my list at the minute, but it is one that definitely appeals. And if I were to find myself with any more wool coming into my stash, it might be for this one. The next one I'm definitely gonna knit. I've already got the wool for it and I'm so excited. And this one is the Fall In cardigan, and that's by Manmi Choi, and this one only has 65 projects on Ravelry. It's a really pretty seeded rib stitch cardigan, just looking, yeah, it's knitted top down, and it's also got some balloon sleeves on it, so some really pretty sleeves. And again, I think in autumn you just want to feel wrapped up, and the idea of these big puffy sleeves really appeals. This one is knitted on a US size, size 5, 4 and 3.5, so I imagine that it's probably the 4 for the body, and maybe some slightly, or maybe the 5 for the body. Yeah, because it's done with a DK weight. So again, this is going to be a quicker one. I'm going to be using Bird Street yarns, hand dyed in the colour Mallard for this one. I'm so excited. Yeah, I have to not cast it on quite yet because I've got another couple of things I need to work through, but this one is so up there on my list. And then the last cardigan or jacket that I have on here is the Pearl Jacket, and this is by Helene Beba. This one is, again, like an oversized jacket, and it's in broken rib. I think that kind of squishy fibres is definitely on my list at the minute, and it is longer in the back, this one, than in the front. I'm just looking at the weight. So it's a DK, so it's a DK held with a lace weight, and it's using a US size 8, which is a 5mm needle. I think this one is probably too similar in pattern to some of the others for me to make like all of these, or at least this year, but I think this one is just really pretty, and I actually quite like the kind of square detail of it with how oversized it's recommended to be. I think that could be really pretty. If I hadn't already decided to knit the Fall In cardigan, I think I would have maybe thought about knitting the Pearl Jacket. I mean, I guess I could probably use either, right? It's overall looking for a DK weight, depends on what gauge I get, but I just think it's such a pretty pattern. And then I just have a couple of jumpers on there. I think I'm saving the like thick cable jumpers for winter, and yeah, I think it feels like some more stockinette jumpers feel more autumny to me. The first one that I have to share only has 5 projects, which is criminal. I love this jumper. I love it in the colour it's knit in. I understand there's lots of patterns that are similar, but I just think it's so cute. And this is the Jeju sweater by Oneulknit, I think. Obviously it's all down below. It's knitted in a worsted weight, which we love. Worsted weight like garments, jumpers go so fast. We absolutely love that. And it's knitted on US size 8, 7, 11 and 2.5. Yeah, it's named after the like holiday island in South Korea, which I've watched lots of videos of, and part of why this appeals, I think, is because of that. But I love the soft pink it's done in. I could see this being really pretty in a hand-dyed yarn, potentially, like held together in soft pinks, or like something with really subtle speckling. The other image I have for this one is a white yarn with like brown, black, tweedy bits. I think that could be really pretty, and let that yarn shine through because it is a more simple pattern. This one is top down, drop shoulder, loose fit, and yeah, just little bit of short rows. Oh no, sorry, no short rows. No short rows. So actually this would be a really good beginner pattern because it's going to be really simple. So it's just a really basic fit. I probably would add some short rows just to get the fit a little bit better along the back because I tend to like that. But yeah, it seems like she's got some shoulder shaping in there without the short rows. So if you're a more beginner knitter, that could be a really interesting pattern for you to have a look at. The next one I have is slightly more popular. It has 135 projects on Ravelry, and this is the Sunde sweater by Fiskum Sunde. And this one is a striped raglan sweater, and I really like the idea of doing this one in a black and a white, or like a bone and a navy. I think that either one of those would be really pretty, either like the classic, more like Breton style black and white, or like just slightly elevating it with those other kind of more subtle colours. So it's knitted top down, raglan style. Again, it's going to be easy. It's got quite a lot of ribbing, it looks like, on the sleeves, like the sleeves kind of pull in on the bottom with that, and it just looks really simple. She recommends holding yarn together. Let's just see what she uses as her suggested yarn. So she's suggesting Sanders Gone Sunday or Filcolana, then held together with a mohair strand. So yeah, kind of quite a good classic combination. And the needle size, it looks as though it's between a 3 and a 4mm needle. So yeah, this one's like not maybe as quick as some of the other ones we've talked about, but I still think it would not be a slow knit at all. And then the very last one I have for sweaters only has 17 projects, criminal, and this is the Eugene Sweater by Joanna Gehrisch. And this is a cabled sweater, I accept that, but I think it's not got the same like bulkiness. I think it's a stocking stitch. It says just it's cable. It kind of reminds me of that kind of stitch pattern. And I just think this is really classic. I think I would probably knit this in a neutral or in a plain colour, like a non-variegated yarn, because the pattern I think speaks for itself quite a lot in this one. I quite like the idea of this in an apple green or a royal blue. I think those are the two that I think could be a really fun pop of colour, but I love the sample that she's chosen to do, which is actually the opposite side of the colour spectrum. It's like a mauvey colour and a deep brown. I just think it's really pretty. The shoulder shaping has some really beautiful details. I think they look almost a bit like a leaf on each shoulder. This one is raglan increases, it's all worked in one piece. So you do a round bit of shaping around the neck, and then the body is worked after the raglan as usual. So yeah, it does look very cool, but I don't feel like those cables will be too hard to knit. And I think, is it slightly lighter weight of yarn? Let's just have a look. It's a DK. Yeah, it kind of doesn't look quite as heavy. I think it's maybe because it's not being paired with a lace weight that it's not having that kind of same floof as some of the other patterns that we've seen. And she recommends this in Carded Cashmere Classic, which would be lovely, but there's lots of other DK weights that are more budget friendly if that's not quite in your remit. And then I have a couple of things in another category. So the first one that I, again, would love to knit. This one would be a little bit of a commitment, I think, but I want to have this in my wardrobe at some point. And this is the Tove Rib Skirt by Lene, and it has 8 projects on Ravelry. This is a long ribbed skirt that I've had skirts like this that were shop bought that I have worn so much. So I think I'd get so much wear out of this one if I did eventually do that. It's just in a rib stitch, gradual increases. And it was actually part of the Iska archive, so yeah, interesting. And it just has a little waist elastic, so not loads of sewing or anything. It is knitted at sport weight and it is big, so it's a commitment, but it is knitted on 4.5mm needles, so at least it's not tiny. But I think this would just be so pretty. I love that she's done it in that like off-white colour. I think that a black would actually be really lovely in this. And I think I'd probably keep it fairly plain. I think it looks really classic. I then have one dress, which is coming into the other pattern category. And again, I think that this one is such a good layering piece in autumn. This is the Twiggy Dress, only 13 projects by Joanna Filip. And this one is a fairly short, like mid-thigh dress with some lovely little pockets in a, I guess I'd kind of call it like a pinafore style. And it's a slip stitch pattern. So I think that's such a pretty way of getting a little bit of texture. It is knitted at a DK weight, and they recommend 2 strands of fingering held together for this one. But I think, you know, a DK would be absolutely fine on this. I think the pattern, it looks as if the stitch definition is quite clear. So I would probably think about something where you've got good stitch definition, and it's knitted on a US size 7, so a 4.5. So again, it's a big piece of clothing, but it's not tiddly tiny gauge, which I think is helpful. And then last but not least, I have just a few accessories to throw into the mix. I really like the book Nook Socks by This Handmade Life, 26 projects on Ravelry. Knitted at a fingering weight on a US size 1, so 2.25, standard for me, kind of standard socks. And I just think these are really cozy. They're not overly complicated. It is just some ribbing on the top, stockinette on the bottom, and I'm not sure what heel construction that looks like. Strong heel, so I haven't done a strong heel before, but yeah, I think that would be a really interesting new heel construction, and I just think they're really cute. I think any like, I personally would say any yarn could probably go with these, but I think for me any solid colour yarn would be a really lovely one for these. I also think they could be quite a good gift knit sock because I think they look more complicated than they are. The other socks that feel very autumn to me are I think they're called the Shortbread Sock. Yeah, the Shortbread Sock by Saskie&Co. Only 42 projects on Ravelry for these, and these are a mix match pair of gingham socks. So I absolutely love the idea of gingham socks. I think it's so clever and pretty. You do need obviously 3 different yarns to achieve this, and I think that potentially doing a white, a like dark egg blue, and then like a dark teal would be absolutely gorgeous, or a pink and a red to go for like strawberry shortcake would be super cute. I've had these on my list for a little while. I haven't had any yarn that's kind of like drawn me to it for these particular socks yet, but I would love to knit them. I think it'd be so much fun. And then the very last pattern that we have for my autumn roundup is a hat pattern, and it's the Ratty Ritty Hat by Elina Hildén, and only 15 projects on this one. This is just a colour blocked, really cool hat. It's just got a little bit of a folded brim, and the way that the stripes go is that you're striping around this way, and then I imagine you're probably picking up stitches, and then you're knitting circular around the top. I think this would be such a good one to use up some scraps, either at a DK weight or holding 2 fingering weights together. My sister's worked in one piece, and everything is stockinette. There's lots of good things about this hat. Yeah, I just think it could be really fun. I think it's a really lovely way to think about using up some scraps, and I really like the idea of having some like contrasting bright colours pop on your head just at the very end of autumn. I'm thinking like November time, just before we kind of get into proper winter proper, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. So yeah, hopefully that's given you some ideas of some autumn knitting. I'd love it if you've got this far, if you would consider subscribing to the channel. It would be great and would really help me out. And I'd love to hear in the comments down below what you're excited to knit in autumn. And am I like jumping the gun majorly by filming this now, or are you also like me, just starting to think about those colder months? I'll see you guys again soon in my next video, and look after yourselves until then. Bye!